Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Joe Nuxhall, Life, Baseball, and Beyond. I'm Dennis Jansen, along with Joe Nuxhall. Joe, your career spans 6 decades. You worked for 10 general managers, played for or reported on 27 managers and 89 coaches. You played with and against and observed literally thousands of players. How many games do you estimate that you have seen or participated in over the years?
I guess, Denny, when you look at it, probably over 10,000 baseball games we've either watched or were a part of, and that doesn't count the minor league games. 6 years really in the minor leagues, so well over 10,000 ball games.
What about the fascination with baseball? What is it? It's played in a park. There's no time limit on it.
Well, I think the challenge, when you look at it, I know when I look at it today and look down on the field from the booth, I say, guys, this looks pretty easy down there. But when you have to participate, it's a tough ball game, and it's an interesting ball game. I think, even back when we played sandlot baseball, it was interesting because of the challenge of a guy throwing a baseball, probably at that level, probably 85, 87 miles an hour, but still being able to hit it solid, and how a pitcher sometimes can dominate a game as opposed to the other side when the offense dominates. So I just think baseball is an interesting game and a challenging game, even for fans. I think the good baseball fan, as far as I'm concerned, enjoys a 1-0 ball game, as opposed to a 15-13 game, something like that. It's just a game you never know what's going to happen. I don't think you can. I don't think you can predict what's going to happen in a ball game. I know many times when I look back we have faced pitchers from the opposition that. We get a report, say, well, this kid, Billy Jones, pitched for the Little Rock Travelers this year and was, a 5 or 4 earned run out, blah, blah, blah. And he comes up and shuts you out. So, to predict the game is pretty difficult. And I think the challenges of it and makes it a very interesting game.
Joe, of all the great teams and all the great players that you've been associated with, seen, played against, take us back to the Big Red Machine. That had to be special in yours and everyone else's estimation.
Well, I think, Denny, when I look back on that period in the Reds' history, it goes back to the mid-'60s. Of course, when you look back on it, you could see the parts being put together as far as what became the Big Red Machine. I was still playing, and of course, Pete came up, Tommy Helms came up, Lee May came up, who else? Johnny Bench came up, Tony Perez. So those components were there, and then they started adding to it. Of course, you had Jim Maloney and Gary Nolan later on. We got Jim Merritt, all the starting pitchers, and then, of course, Jack Billingham came later. So all of that was, you could see it being put together. And the guy I felt sorry for was Dave Bristol, because Dave managed an organization, and he had most of those guys in the minor leagues. And then they made the change when Bob Housen came and brought Sparky in. And, of course, we know the history from that point on. But I think we all realize that the deal that Mr. Housen made with the Houston Astros was the telling point of the Big Red Machine, when he got Joe Morgan, Jack Billingham, Dennis Menke, Cesar Geronimo, which is a player that I still feel that has not been given enough credit for what he added to the ball club, because when you look back in those days at defensive players, that there was, I don't think anyone better in center field than Geronimo, and I think one of his strong points, certainly along with his glove, was his arm. He had a great throwing arm, and then the way the club just gelled, the move that Sparky made with George Foster. We all remember when we got George from the San Francisco Giants and sent him to Indianapolis, and when we got him, he couldn't hit a curveball with a paddle, but he worked on it. George was a hard worker, went to Indy and worked hard over there, and came back, and then Sparky made that move, I think it was in Montreal, where he brought Pete in from left field, put him at third base, and put George in regularly in left field, and the ball club really took off. And from that point on, they won 2 World Series. I think they were in 4 altogether back in the 70s. Certainly an era that I think we were all extremely proud of, but still there was some good manipulating, I guess you would say, by Mr. Howsam and the scouting staff that added to that ball club's success.
My old friend and yours as well, Nick Clooney, tells the story about apparently being in the Reds clubhouse after a loss to the Dodgers, I want to say. This is perhaps 75, and the Dodgers are making a rush at the end of the season. And it's an afternoon game. Joe Morgan has made an error that apparently has led to a Reds loss, and so the clubhouse is like a tomb afterwards, as Nick described it. And Tony Perez walked over to what was a metal garbage can, picked it up and slammed the lid down on the floor and said, "Hey, Morgan, I found your glove over here." And everybody just broke up.
Oh, yeah.
Broke the tension, and they just cruised home to the pennant.
Well, that was
chemistry was.
Yeah, that was the chemistry of the ball club. These guys could get on each other and like that, and there was never any problems with it. I always remember Joe again was talking about after it was a Saturday afternoon game, and we had a doubleheader the next day, if I remember correctly. And Joe says, "Man, I'm tired." He says, I don't know if I can get out there tomorrow or not. Well, Pete and Tony, we get out to the ballpark the next morning. No, it was a single game. We got out to the park the next morning at Riverfront, and I was still in batting practice at the time, and I'm sitting back here. My little locker was right across from Joe and Pete and Tony, and so I'm sitting there, and Tony goes back in the training room, and here he comes with a sheet. Excuse me. Here he comes with a sheet. He lays it in front of Joe's locker, and he goes back again. Here he comes back, and now he's got a pillow. Where he got the pillow, took it off a training table, I guess, put the pillow there. And then he went out somewhere in Sparky's office or somewhere and got the sports page out of the Enquirer and put it on the pillow. And this is right in front of Joe's locker. And Morgan comes in about 10 minutes later, and he looks, and I can't repeat what he says, but what he said about Doggy, Doggy, you, blah, 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 blah. But I never, everybody laughed, and that's the way they approach things. It's like I think of it, it was in the 75 series with the Red Sox. I think Tony was like 0 for 13 or something like that. And Pete walks in, and he went up to Doggy, and he said, "Doggy," shook his hand. He said, "You know what, tonight," he said, "if you go 0 for 4, you'll set a new record for the World Series. You'll break, I think, Gil Hodges' record of 0 for 17. I think that was the night Tony went out and hit 2 home runs, didn't he, and drove in 3 or 4 or 5 runs. That's the way they approach things. And, they were just a joy to be around. And one of the things, and I've talked about this many times, Denny, I threw batting practice to him for all those years. For 25 years, I threw batting practice. But one of the things that I always like to bring up about those guys is if we faced a left-handed pitcher, I would throw to the regulars. And if it was a right-hander, someone else did. So whenever a left-handed pitcher pitched, I would throw their batting practice. But one of the things I always noticed about Joe and Pete and Tony, and most all of them, after maybe 1 or 2 rounds of hitting where they got loose, they always asked for breaking balls, curveball or sliders, which to me amazed me, because most guys, they want to get up there and see if they can hit it over the top of the stadium, where these guys were really serious about, I know my curveball wasn't a Steve Carlton curveball or any, but just the idea of seeing the rotation kind of set things up for them, and I thought that was interesting.
They were thinkers as well as players.
Yeah, and I'm not saying the guys today don't do that, don't get me wrong, but it's just something that we noticed about them. They would set up situations in batting practice themselves. You say a man on third, 1 out, get him in. And I will say this, Chris Chambliss reminds guys that do that today, and I think most hitting coaches really do. But it was just something that kind of stuck in my mind about that group.
In a day and age when players are holding out for millions of dollars more than someone else in the league, it seems, if memory serves me, Pete Rose held out one spring because he wanted $1 more than Joe Morgan.
Right.
And I think his rationale was because he came up through the organization and he was a local kid. Does that ring true?
That was true, but
$1 more.
There was nothing, as far as any. It really was. I think it was kind of a humor type thing, But Pete, Pete liked to joke around, and I think that was just kind of a humorous thing, with Joe. And I don't, to my recollection, I don't recall anything other than a laugh coming out over that.
But you have to have some feelings to see how that tragedy of Pete Rose unfolded over the years. It has to be one of the dark spots in your baseball heart.
Well, it is, because, Pete gave so much to the game, and like I say, if there was a greater ambassador for the game of baseball than Pete Rose, I want to meet him. And it's just a tragedy that what happened to him. But I'll be honest with you. I was rooting for Pete, and when he came out with his book and admitted that he had done those things, then I jumped off his bandwagon, I'll be very honest. Excuse me. Because I think we all felt the same way about when it happened, that had Pete gone to the commissioner when he was called to New York, sat down and said, Mr. Commissioner, I've messed up here. I'm sorry for it, and I want to straighten it out. And I honestly believe he possibly would be in the Hall of Fame today. But the way things are going nowadays with the steroids and all this stuff, and guys getting nominated to the Hall of Fame to be on the ballot has been drugs and steroids, then to me, Pete Rose deserves to be on it. I mean, he made a mistake. He's paid for it for the last, 17 years now, I think. He deserves to be on the ballot. That's my total feeling about it. He has done more for the game of baseball than any of the guys that are out there.
Moving on to 1990, the Reds' most recent World Series championship. Another team of great success, obviously, and great character and great players, but a whole different sort of mix. You had Lou Piniella, who was, he's a case study in and of himself, and you had players like Chris Sabo and, Paul O'Neill and Rob Dibble and Norm Charlton and Randy Myers and of course, Rijo and Larkin and Eric Davis, and the list goes on and on and on. Hal Morris. Talk about that team.
Well, it was a different ball club, without a doubt. I guess you look at the way they played the game. They played it tough. Sabo, how Chris, he was gung-ho every minute. Barry was young and was outstanding at shortstop. You had Hal Morris at first base, an excellent hitter, and Paul O'Neill. It was a good baseball team, but I don't think anyone felt that it would go wire to wire. I mean, I think they all felt that it was a club that could get the job done, but to go wire to wire was a thing. But all of them were, good, solid ball players. They played the game well and worked at it. They were hustlers. Paul O'Neill, to me, still that's one of the worst deals we've made in the history of the ball club. There's some other ones that we can talk about, but that was one of the all-time worst. And I guess when you think back and remember the reasoning for it is Lou wanted Paul to hit 50 home runs instead of 25 or 30, and really wanted Hal Morris to do the same thing. And both of them were excellent hitters. And of course, Paul winds up, as we all know, with the Yankees and has tremendous success there and just a couple of World Series. But that team really did some things to make them a better ball club in as far as their work ethics. And then you had the nasty boys, Dibble, Myers, and Charlton, and they were, you got the seventh inning, you were ahead, you were pretty confident that you're going to win the ball game. And then going to the series, and we all remember that the Cincinnati Reds playing the Oakland Athletics, they have no chance at all, and then go and sweep them. So it was an interesting year, probably a year that we enjoyed maybe more in the Big Red Machine World Championships because this ball club was kind of a raggy-tag maybe type club, no individual that you'd say could possibly carry the team like back in the 70s when you had Bench, Perez, and those individuals that one of them in a sense could really carry the ball club. But this team was just I guess you'd call it really a great team effort.
You've transitioned through any number of Reds ownership groups, most notably in recent years Marge Schott and now the Carl Lindner Group. Can you compare and contrast them with organizations that used to be in charge before them?
Well, I think we've gone through 6 ownerships, I think it is, starting with Mr. Crosley and now Mr. Lindner, but all of them had their different thoughts on the game. There's no question about it. But the owners the last 15 years, particularly for the small market clubs, have been difficult. You can talk about money that's being spent, and there's a limit to it. There's no question about it. The excuse me, the Yankees. They have more money in their till as we sit here this particular day than probably the Reds will gross for the year, and they haven't sold a ticket yet. So, it's difficult, and I give them credit. They've tried to have successful teams here in Cincinnati, and they get a lot of heat on spending money, and certainly we wish that they had whatever it took to make it a successful club. So I think what has happened this particular year and what Dan O'Brien has done and Mr. Lindner, that they've done an excellent job trying to, trying to make this a winning ball club, and we're looking forward to it.
I think one of the saddest episodes in recent memory relative to the Cincinnati Reds was what was done to Ron Oster, who was a great player. He was a dedicated career Reds employee, and just through an act of treachery was deprived of the opportunity to manage the team.
Well, that was something that we're all really upset over and still are, because Ron is, when I look back on all the guys that I've been associated with, Ron Oster is one of my favorites without a doubt. He is, I consider him a close friend, and we just hated it when this happened, when he was a candidate to be the manager of this ball club, and whatever happened, I don't know, but it sure was unfair, because what's wrong with trying to do a little better in your contract? And I bet my life Ron had no idea that he wanted to really rob anybody. He was just trying to get a little better contract, and if it didn't, he was ready to take what was being offered, and then to have it happen in the way he did when Bob Boone shows up in Cincinnati from San Diego, California in the dead of winter. That to me was a cheap shot for Ron, and we'll always stand by Ron Oster through thick or thin.
You have to feel good for Dave Miley finally getting an opportunity, a guy who was successful everywhere in the Reds minor league organization, now getting the chance, and it looks like he's going to get some backing from the front office.
Well, Dave, you look at his successes as a manager in our organization, has been very, very good. And Dave is very knowledgeable about the game of baseball. And I think when you watched his two teams operate in '03 and when he came up in '02, that you could see that he has a good idea about how he wants the ball club to play. And you have to have the tools too. Sometimes your ideas of how you want the game to go can't be used because you don't have the tools. It's like working on a car, baby. If you don't have the proper wrenches or whatever, you can't work on it. And same thing for Dave. And I think Dave plays a really good, aggressive game of baseball. And the more tools he'll have, I think the better you'll see the ball club play. What we're looking forward to this year, I think as we sit here at this particular time, that this ball club has gained some more tools for Dave and his staff, and we'll probably see, I'm sure we'll see a better baseball team.
In summation, I want to ask you this question. What is it about the fraternity of Major League Baseball players that no matter how close people might try to get, they'll never penetrate that wall around that fraternity house? It's special, and no matter how long you've been removed from the game, you can always walk back into it, and you're always welcomed if you have ever been a Major League Baseball player.
Well, I think when you can consider things of that nature, it's just how you have played the game, in a sense, and the time spent, there's no question about it, your dedication to it. I think if a lot of individuals, once they leave the game, they really forget about it. But I think majority of the players that have played for any period of time at the major league level or even at the minor league level still enjoy the game. And I think, you walk in our clubhouse today and walk up to a Sean Casey or an Adam Dunn or an Austin Kearns or a Paul Wilson and, say, hi, Paul, Joe Nuxhall. I played with the Reds back in the 60s and so on, and that'll start a conversation. And I really feel that that's a nice feeling for these guys to appreciate you in a sense. And it's I guess the union Players Association is a part of it, no question about it, because they're all part of voting on what they want done and what kind of rules they want, like the steroid thing that has just been before them. They have done some things with that, and I guess their input into the game and helping it hopefully become even better is a good feeling for all of us, not just the active players, but us that have retired from the game.
Marty Brennaman, what a successful and wonderfully warm collaboration that was and has been.
Well, that's true, and Marty has been a absolutely huge part of our life. And you look back on 30, 31, 32 years in that booth and think that we're still close friends. We're not just friends, we're close friends. And we've, in all honesty, in all those years, we've never had a harsh, really, argument. We've had discussions, let's put it that way. But I mean, he's just been, a godsend for me, and I guess he looks at the same way as for myself. We've just enjoyed everything, and I guess the one thing I'm proud of, he used to make fun of golf. Oh, he said, that's the stupidest game. They hit a ball and chase it. That's dumb, He'd come into the booth, I'd go into the booth. Well, How'd you do in that stupid game today? And blah, blah, blah. So this is a story about Marty. One day I walked into the booth. We were on the road in St. Louis. I don't know where it was. But anyway, he says, well, how'd you do in a stupid game today? What'd you shoot? I said, I was 7 under. He said, now he lights up, 7 under? I said, yeah, 7 under. And he's all lit up, boy, boy, I guess old Joe can play. I said, yeah, I got 7 less balls than I started with. That got him. I ran him down, but still, all those years, and that's something I miss. I'll be real honest with you. It's sitting in that booth with him every night. It's going to be tough, and it's been tough, but I wish the very best to him and Steve. Stevie is a good guy, and I want people to give him a chance. He'll be okay.
Now, does Marty have any strengths on the golf course?
Well, I will. I give Marty a lot of credit. He's a dedicated golfer. He's really worked at it, and he's gone and come a long way. But the thing is, if I ever find something else I might want to do, I think I'm going to either design some golf clubs or sell golf clubs, because I know where I can sell one set.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You obviously have a landmark in baseball's history. I would submit, though, that had you not done anything beyond becoming the youngest Major League Baseball player ever, that somehow that would have not been as significant. What you did after that, and how you went about your career, and the kind of person that you've become, and how you've helped other people, that has only served to enhance that original bit of notoriety about you.
Well, again, as we talked, I guess in another program, Denny, it's always a nice feeling to be appreciated. I think you would agree with that. To be appreciated by not just a few, but everybody if you can. And that's something that I'm proud of. I just, again, as I've said before, I'm no different than anyone else. I chose a profession that has you in the limelight. I know many places I go and they say, well, we got a celebrity here. I said, no, that's a lot of malarkey. That celebrity I don't go for, because, again, I'm no different than you are. I just had a different profession that put you in the limelight. But I appreciate it, and I've enjoyed it, and I just want people to think of me as one of the regular guys.
It has been an absolute delight, Joe. Thank you for sharing your time and memories with us. It's been special. Thanks to everyone here at WCET for recruiting me, frankly, to be part of this landmark program. And thanks again to Joe Nuxhall, the old left-hander, one of a kind.
Well, I'd like to thank WCET also. They've been a very instrumental part of my TV watching. I like the Lawrence Welk bit, though.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for watching, everyone, and good night.